Okay, so give me like 2 minutes, okay? Seriously, I really am, in all sincerity, trying to create a nice open dialogue and a learning opportunity for everybody involved. And so I want to share a perspective that may be difficult, but I feel like I'm in a really good spot to share it as an ENTP, because our middle two functions, our second and tertiary function, are swapped. So ENTPs, like, I get a taste of what it's like to be you. With my my TIFE, I just get a taste, and I know it's a taste, and so I really empathize with what it must feel like to have such an intense level of feeling and emotion and to feel so in tune to things. So getting my heart broken by an INFJ is something that, in all honesty, has never happened. But I wouldn't say I haven't got my heart broken by anybody, and it's a function of me. It's not a function of anybody else, and it's not a situation of I've never been hurt to the point that my heart would end up broken. It's just that I think my perspective is so shifted. So imagine what it would be like for you to feel an order of magnitude removed from your emotions. And I say an order of magnitude because with my FE in a tertiary position versus a secondary position, you know, your dominant function and your secondary function pretty much just are really cohesive. They're right there together, to the point that sometimes it's hard to even separate them. And then you get into your tertiary and inferior function, and you get like a better sense of the distinction between it and then your dominant two functions, which is essentially why we could basically type anybody by their dominant and secondary function. So for me, like, I'll get these moments where I have this like intense sense of feeling, but like as a kid I would cry fairly often because I was super frustrated because I couldn't quite figure out my emotions. They were there, but I've said this before, it was like I'm emotionally constipated. I just can't quite access it. So when I feel something, like, the last thing I want somebody to do is try to hug me or comfort me. Like, I actually want to cry. I sometimes will I'll do things that elicit that response from me intentionally. There's certain videos, certain things that can trigger me, and I know that it can get me to cry. And for me, I'm removed enough from it that it's a curiosity to me. So how this relates to the title of the video is I have a lot of INFJs when I make a video where I'm being really critical of you, and you guys will say, oh man, somebody must have really hurt you, or your heart must have really got broken, or somebody must have really this, and it's always put on somebody else having hurt me, putting me in a position of being the victim, where I've been hurt or injured or damaged, versus having allowed somebody to do something or whatever. Now keep in mind, I'm 40, I'm gonna be 46 in 2 months. I have been through a divorce with a woman that I was married to for 10 years, an ISFJ. I was in a relationship before that for 6 years, and that ended. I have 3 children with my ISFJ ex-wife, and I went through a divorce and a custody hearing and all of that, and I don't make videos about ISFJs and feel this hurt. So keep in mind, if I'm not making videos about that, I don't feel any hurt. And it's not, I'm trying to explain it in a way that'll make some sense. It's not that I wasn't hurt. It's that I really truly believe that we are the architects of our world. So it's in our choices. We're always dealing with our choices, and there's this like kind of ironic thing where we make maybe, however many 10, 20, 30 big choices in life, and they're choices that just take a minute, and we sort of play our life out based on those choices: to get married, to have a child, to take a job, to move, something like that. And so any hurt that I've ever felt, I think I just look at it like, and maybe because I'm removed enough where it hurts me, like I definitely have had that nausea inside, and high anxiety, difficulty sleeping. I don't know that I don't cry very easily, and so I've never been hurt like I'll cry necessarily. I mean, it's happened, but it's not a common reaction for me. It's more that I just can't like sit still, and I can't focus on anything else, and I can't sort of just get lost in anything else. I'm very present in the experience of what's going on and playing it over in my head and over and over and over again. But again, ultimately, I always come to this conclusion, and I'll give you a really quick example. I was in a relationship back in the beginning of 2016 with INFP, and I knew that she was working through issues, and I knew that it might hurt. I knew that I might feel pain over it, or that feeling I experience of not being able to focus on anything else. But I said to her, I said, I don't think you're ready for this, but I'm willing to try. And I went for it. And I don't know how to explain it, because it didn't damage me. I mean, I grew from it like an enormous amount. It didn't, I guess, fuck, I have a really hard time relating with the word hurt. And it's not that I'm trying to avoid using the word hurt. I guess it hurt, but for me, like as an ENTP, we're always afraid of being stuck in this like unknown place, and so at the end of the relationship, I had put so much in of like my energy and time and thinking that the hurt was in part negated by a sense of relief. And so I felt a sense of relief, but I missed the person. So there was like a not wanting to change the routines that we had, and there was a not wanting to give up on the future that we had talked about, and there was a sense of relief that I would get to just stop putting the effort and energy into the relationship that I had been putting into it. And there was a sense of relief that I would just be able to focus on me and care for me, but there was no animosity towards her. And I think a big part of that is I don't take anything personally. I understand that the things that people say and do to us are a reflection of where they're at, how they see things, what they do. If somebody cheated on me, for example, I wouldn't take it personally. I would feel sympathy for the person. I would feel like, man, that's really sad that they didn't feel like they could speak to me about this. That's really sad that they kept this part of themselves hidden. That's really sad that they were potentially doing that for affirmation or something. It's really sad that I gave all that I could, and that still wasn't enough for this person to be satisfied. Or that I would maybe feel like, what warning signs could I have seen that this was where they were at and this was what was going to happen? How could I have maybe handled this differently and addressed it differently so that either I could have like confronted it earlier, but again, I also am very confrontational. I don't mean that in a negative way. I feel like life is very confrontational. We're always having a confrontation and in a conflict. I'm using them almost interchangeably. When we're hungry, we're having a conflict with our stomach. When we have to use the bathroom, we're having a conflict. When we need sleep, we're having a conflict. When we go out to our car and it doesn't start, there's a conflict. And so, because I'm kind of a high anxiety person in some ways, not I think the ways that a lot of people are, I don't like putting things off. When there's an issue that needs addressing, I will spend more energy thinking about it than it will take me to just address it. So I'm not conflict avoidant, and I'm, very, I guess, maybe people see it as confrontational because I really will just go right in, and if somebody's not wanting to talk about a topic or something like that. Anyways, so I'll think about it like, how could I have dealt with this differently? How could I handle this differently? How could I have been a better partner? Even though somebody just cheated on me. And the last time, I think, it's been a long time since I know, like, for a fact somebody cheated on me, but I still would look at that like, how could I have been a better partner? How could I have seen this coming? Or I would look at it like, what was going on in my life? Because I truly believe that we end up with who we are, where we are. So in terms of our mental health and where we're at, emotional health wise and so on, I feel like we end up with an equal. So if we end up with a partner that's a narcissistic, cheating liar, there's a component of us that is the opposite of that. And just because it's the other side of the coin doesn't mean it's not there. Maybe it is less intrusive, maybe it's less damaging, maybe it doesn't so overtly hurt others, but it's still there, because a healthy person isn't going to end up with this other person. They would never come together. So I think that's about all I have to say on it. I just, I want you guys to understand that we don't work like you. NTs in general, certainly ENTPs. I'm speaking primarily from a ENTP standpoint. There's definitely colder NTs, the INTJ, INTP, but you always think. So it's hard to give an example of something, because even a feeler thinks. Feelers and thinkers, obviously a thinker feels and a feeler thinks, but you have to think day to day, because you have to go through your day-to-day life. And so I think there's more of a separation of feeling for thinkers than it seems like there is for thinking with feelers. And I guess I'm saying that because I lead with thinking, so I'm always thinking things through, and the thought comes, and then oftentimes the feeling comes. So as an example of that, a lot of times I won't even know I'm upset for 2 days. Like, something will happen, and the next day I'm kind of just over it. And if I'm still upset a day later or 2 hours later, then I'm probably really fucking upset, like really upset. But that rarely happens, maybe once or twice a year. So a lot of the reason I'm saying this is because I think it's hard. One of the biggest dangers we can ever do, or most dangerous areas we can ever wander into, is attaching our emotions, thoughts, feelings, intentions, and so on to another person's actions or behavior or words. But when you see me looking angry, sometimes I'm just a really fucking passionate person, and it gets mistaken for anger all the time. But it's rarely do I speak. In fact, unless the topic is, about one of my family members, one of my daughters, or something like that, I rarely speak about a specific person. And unless I'm being clear that I'm speaking about a specific thing I've done, I rarely speak about a specific thing I've felt or that's happened to me. Oftentimes, like a ENTP or like a P more specifically, I'm talking in a big, broad, general sort of area. I'm painting with like a 10-inch brush, a huge brush. So keep that in mind. I hope I managed to keep this on point. I'm going to stop this now before it hits 15 minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I hope everybody's staying safe out there, and you all are like a family to me, so I appreciate everything. All right,